was 17 and I went to get my first license. This clearly is not my first license. But when I went to get it, you have to take an eye exam. And so I'm standing there, and the woman, who I know was trying to be really nice, said to me, "Why don't you take off your glasses to see if you can manage to not get the restriction?" And I said, "Well, ma'am, honestly, I would never drive without my glasses on. I can't see without them. I have terrible eyesight." She says, "Well, just give it a try." I'm like, all right. So I take off my glasses, I put my eyes up to the machine, and she asks me, "Where's the apple on the picnic table?" And my response was, "What picnic table?" She said, "All right, put your glasses on." I put my glasses on, I looked at the machine, and I said, "Oh, now I can see the picnic table. And I see exactly where the apple is." All of us can be put in situations where we know what we're being asked to do is not sort of quite right. Now, not that the woman was trying to get me to do something wrong, but I knew what she was asking me to do, well, wouldn't work, because I have horrible eyesight. And that really is sort of what happens when we get tempted. Temptation is that moment when we're being called to do something that we know is not quite right. Something we really shouldn't be doing. There's something within us usually telling us, "No, don't do that." And as sort of we begin the season of Lent, we begin it on that first Sunday with the temptation of Christ. Jesus is tempted 3 times. And in that temptation, Jesus answers each temptation really essentially in the same way. His primary concern is simply to understand what it is God is calling him to do in that moment. And ultimately, that's what we're called to do. The power of temptation, I think, really comes about in a couple of ways. The first is, well, if we're honest with ourselves, we really like the temptation. Jesus is hungry. He hasn't eaten for 40 days. Turn the rock into bread. I have a feeling a lot of us may have fallen into that temptation if we had the ability to. But Jesus understood that ultimately it's about what God is calling you to do, and nothing else matters. It doesn't matter if he's hungry. God has called him into the desert, and God will provide what he needs. He doesn't have to do anything about it. And the power of temptation is found that we can rationalize that. We can say, well, God really wouldn't mind. Or, it's really not that important. We can come up with lots of reasons why the temptation is okay, for the simple reason we want to do it. The sin is not in the temptation. The sin is our choosing to act on it. I think the other thing that can sort of draw us in temptation is fear. We get so afraid of being tempted. We get so afraid of where the temptation might lead us that it actually takes control of us. And again, Jesus shows us how to sort of, in a sense, deal with that fear. Throw yourself off. The angels will catch you. In our fear, we can put God to the test. God, if you really are there, if you're really going to help me, do something about this. The way we deal with fear in the face of temptation is simply to trust. To trust in God's love and mercy. To trust in His grace. And to trust that even in the midst of our temptation, our God is there with us. It's very easy, in a sense, to get blinded by temptation, to have it overcome us. But it doesn't have to. That's what Jesus teaches us. It's not because Jesus is divine that He overcomes the temptation. If that was true, then the whole point of His being tempted would be useless. Rather, in His humanity, Jesus overcomes the temptation by trusting in God. The reality is we're going to be tempted in our life. The question is, what will we do about it? And the only real response we should have as we face temptation is to trust that God will get us through it. May you have a truly blessed Lent. God bless.